Hey, folks, welcome to another Spooky Appalachia story. Uh, Tonight, I've got a really special one for you. Um, I've got one of the original Mothman sighting witnesses from 1967 on. Her name's Linda, and she's going to be telling her story of what she witnessed one night back in 1967. How are you doing, Linda?
I'm fine. How are you?
Just excited, nervous.
Mm.
This is awesome. I thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's therapeutic for me because every time I speak about it, it helps me to come to terms.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, hmm. So should we? I don't know. I'm trying to think how to start this off. Um, is there any background information you want to give before you tell the story?
Yeah, I'll tell you where I'm from and
Okay.
where I live now. Uh,
Sure.
I grew up on the banks of the Ohio River in a town called Pomeroy, Ohio. And Pomeroy sits right on the river, and right across the river is the town of Mason, West Virginia. And Mason is about 20 miles north of Point Pleasant, where the original Mothman sightings were back in November of 1966. I was born in Mason, West Virginia, but like I said, my home was right along the river, right across from uh, Mason. You go across the Pomeroy Mason Bridge and into Pomeroy, and we had a home that was about probably 100 yards from the river. And I grew up in the 60s, and of course, that was a really different time than now. Things were a little bit more laid back. Kids had a little more time to go out and explore. And I live now in Parkersburg, West Virginia, with my friend Chris Parsons, who I call my son because he's like a son to me. And we live in the woods now, and he is a UFO speaker, and
And
that's
you
pretty
are
much
too,
I
which is
mostly talk
how I
about
heard about you.
Mothman and some my UFO experience with Mothman and Bigfoot, which we think we have here in the woods.
Nice.
So
So I can definitely, if you want to, have you on for other stories in the future.
yeah, that'd be great. We've got some exciting Bigfoot things going on here. Structures and footprints and noises and bangs, and I saw a creature once.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but the latest was about a week ago that I heard the calls, and I that's what I do with my spare time is I go out in the woods, and I was out there before yesterday. You know, I am part Native American, so I'm used to the elements and nature, and that's where I find my peace is in the woods.
I think that's a trait that runs in all of us that have that ancestry because, I've talked to you about it. I'm like that too.
Yes, I think it. You're drawn to nature, and nature's drawn to you. And it seems like all of these things from my beginning of my life until now has included things like spirits and um, ghosts and animal spirits and cryptids and the unknown. And it's left me to be more of a psychic empath. And I try to follow that line because I use it now to help others.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good thing to do.
Thank you.
Well, do you want to, I guess, get into the story?
Oh, yeah,
Talk
that's
about what
fine.
that happened? Or, I guess, when did it happen exactly?
April the 15th, 1967. My boyfriend lived in Mason, West Virginia, which is, like I said, across from Pomeroy, Ohio. And we'd been dating just for a little while. And of course, the prior Novembers when Mothman was sighted down in Point Pleasant by some kids. He chased their car, several of them, and then one of them, she was in the TNT area, which is an old munitions plant, and at the time it was abandoned. But during World War II, they made uh, material for bombs. But that's where they were out there riding, looking for the UFOs, and encountered the Mothman. So my boyfriend and I would go down there occasionally, and we called it the bird. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
everybody didn't know what it was, and of course my dad said, well, it's a some kind of crane or something, it's just a giant bird. But this thing could fly almost 100 miles an hour and was about 8 feet tall and had big red eyes, and we didn't think that's what it was. So kids would congregate in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to look for it.
And it was all over the news back then. My dad was talking about it to me one day. It was all over the place, he
Yeah.
said.
Mhm.
And there were people driving from like all over the region to try to catch it.
You go down there in the evening, especially on weekends, and just hang out and look for UFOs. We saw some lights in the sky, but I think a lot of it was just congregating to do. Back then, there wasn't much to do. You could go bowling, or you could, just go to the soda shop or the Dairy Queen or whatever, or to the movies. But in the 60s, there wasn't a whole lot to do. So, all of us would get in our car, and bunch of us together, and we'd all go down there and we'd look for it. And this one night, he came and picked me up about 7:15, and it was still daylight. It was April. There weren't any leaves on the trees, but it was relatively warm. We had shorts on, and we go across the Primary Mason Bridge to Mason. He said, I'm going to take us to a different place and see what we can see. And so I said, okay. So we go to Mason, and we turn right up through this country road. And this road we go through is a gravel road, and it's about a mile and a half, maybe, outside of the town of Mason. And it goes back into the hills. And we go to the top of the hill, and he said, this place right here, there's a farmer that wants me to help him do hay. Well, he had a horse, and we used to ride out there on the horse. But this time we were in his 57 Chevy, or 56 Chevy, excuse me. And so we get to the top of the hill, off of the gravel road, and the road keeps going down over the hill. Well, we pull in to the right, we go in, and we turn around and face out. And it's, we're sitting out in the middle of this field on top of this hill. It's beautiful out there. To our right is a grove of trees that it runs parallel with the car. In front of us is the road we came in on. Excuse me. And then down over the hill is the river. Can't really see the river from where we're at, but we've got a big expanse of sky. So he gets a quilt out of the back of the car, and we take it, we put it on the hood of the car. And we climb up on the car hood, and we're sitting there. Excuse me. Excuse me, talking. And getting to know each other a little bit, And we've only been there about probably 10 minutes. It's starting to get dark. It's not dark yet, but it's twilight. And you can see the cars starting, or the stars starting to come out through that grove of trees. And I notice, I'm talking to him, he's turning to the right, looking at something. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And he said, see that star over there? It looks weird. And I said, yeah, it does. And it was, if you hold your hand straight out and raise it just a little bit, it wasn't real far up, but it looked like it might have been if you see a planet, it looked like it might be that. But then it kept pulsating. It would go in and then get a little bit bigger each time. And he said, I've been watching that thing ever since we got here, about 10 minutes. And just about that time, it it made one of those big pulses, and it came right through the clouds, and and the whole sky was beautiful. It was shades of pink and red, and it just like it was boiling. This thing came through the clouds, and to me now, back then I didn't think about it, but now I think it reminded me of what you would think of a supernova,
Mm-hmm.
this explosion. But I also think it was coming through a dimension. Now that's all my that's what I think, you know. So I couldn't tell you for sure.
Yeah.
But just a second, my little dog wants me to hold her. Come here. And um, and it burst through the clouds, and it just sit there. And if you think of of uh, a supermoon, that's about the size of it. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
got pretty good size, and it kept growing, and it was coming closer to us each time. And the thing, it was closer than realized, or that we realized, and we could see it, and we just sat in awe and looked at it. And growing up in the 50s, um, during the Cold War and stuff, I thought, you know, this is the end of the world. Somebody dropped. We didn't know what to think. We're still sitting on top of that car,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly it started to move. Well, the thing is reddish orange, real bright, and all the area around it seemed to be encompassed with this color. It was beautiful, it really was. And I was too um, enthralled looking at it to really be very afraid. Um, he was too. And we just sat there and watched it. And it came from our lower right up into the, you know, up at our like 1 o'clock. And by that time, it was gigantic. And it came to the edge of that grove of trees and stopped right at the gravel road that we had come in on. And it was about treetop high, because when we watched it, it was coming from right to left through the trees. And it was going up a little bit as it come through. And when it finally stopped there at the road, it was immense. And it wasn't giving off any sound. There was no heat or anything from it. All it was at this time was a huge ball of light. So he said, "You better get in the car." Of course, we're just still sitting there, and I got my mouth open looking at it, and I relive it every time I tell it. And it just all of a sudden started coming toward us, and we're out in the middle of this field. We're back about 50 yards from the road, and it's traveling really slow, and it comes up and over the car. And it is so big. When you raise your head and look at it, all you can see underneath is lights. Now, when it came toward us, and I've heard other people say this too, but when it came toward us, it was a ball. And when it got on top of us, it was flat with a dome. And at
Huh.
this time, it was still, this time it was still red. And I'm just trying to understand what it is. Well, here's where I have some lost time, and this is pretty fantastic. But the next thing I remember, we're both in the car, and of course, I'm on the passenger side, and he's behind the wheel. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and we both look up. And I lean out of the car windows are down. I lean out the window, and I'm looking up, and I see the bottom of this thing, and it's making noise like just a real kind of a sucking noise, but you know, nothing real loud. And there's no heat, but there's lots of light. The whole area where we're sitting is all lit up. The inside of the car is lit up. All around it's lit up. And he tries to start the car. He said, "We're getting out of here." And of course, he has a little bit of trouble getting us started. And he starts to pull out. And as he pulls out, um, the object starts to move, and it moves from left, from we move forward, and from our lower left in front of the car at the bumper is this creature standing, and it jumps in the air and it flies from left to right, just in front of us. And I'm like, what's that? And he pulls out so fast, and he's turning left, and he's riding, and he said, "It's a UFO." And I said, "No, what is that? Didn't you see that creature?" And it was man-like. It was about 8 feet tall. That's how I just tried to think about what it looked like. Grayish black. It had its arms back. It had wings, but I called it arms. And it reminded me of how Superman would look. You know how, if you're familiar with Superman, he just took a jump and he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this thing did. It did not flap its wings. It did not make any noise. It flew right just almost over the top of the hood of the car, from left to right and up into the trees. And my boyfriend's driving, and turning left out of the field, and we're bouncing all over the place. And I'm hanging out the passenger side. And back then we didn't have seatbelts. And I'm like, look at that thing. I'm trying to get us out of here, Linda. And I can remember hearing the gravels of that car, the wheels, the gravels were flying everywhere, and the UFO's flying over top of us, and it goes straight down over the hill. And the creature goes to the right up in the trees, stops, and turns around. It is dark enough that it was like you've been outside when there is moonlight and you can see through the trees. That's the kind of thing it was. And just a second. Car at the passenger window, and he's driving as fast as he can get down that road. And I said, did you see that? And he said, yeah, I saw it. It was a UFO. And I said, well, yeah, but didn't you not see the creature? And he said, I didn't see a creature. And I said, well, let's go on down the road here there was a strip mine down there, and they weren't working down there anymore, but it was an abandoned place where we could pull off to the left. I said, pull in here and let's get calmed down. I want to tell you what I saw. And then I want to go back up there, because I know it's sitting up there in the trees, and I want you to see it. So we get down there and we pull in like we did off of the gravel road and into the strip mine, and we turn around, and he said, what'd you see? And I said, when you started the car, there was a creature standing there right to your left, and it flew up over the hood of the car, and it flew up in the trees to the right across the road there. And I said, I think it was that Mothman thing. And he said, oh, I don't know, Linda. I didn't see it, but So we got ourselves calmed down. I said, I think I want to go home. I just want to go home. And by this time it was dark. And I looked at my watch, and back then we always wore a wristwatch. It was 8:30. It was 7:15 when he picked me up. It took no more than 15 minutes to get over there. We'd only been there about 10 minutes, and we saw that UFO. What happened all that time? He said, I don't know. And I said, well, there must be a car coming up the road from where we came from, up on the hill where the object was. I said, there's lights coming up that road. I said, somebody's coming, and we should probably go ahead and go home. He said, okay. I don't want to go back up on the hill. I said, okay. Well, he started to start the car, and it wasn't a car. It was another object. And this one was smaller, and it was all white, and it was about the size of a Volkswagen. And I'm like, here we go again. This one's smaller. And the thing was probably 50 yards from us. And it was following the road that we had came from up on the hill from. And it was, when something follows the road, it goes a little to the left and a little to the right. I mean, it wasn't coming at an angle or anything. The thing was about 3 feet above the road. It was about the size of a Volkswagen, perfectly round. And it looked like an iridescent or incandescent light where, you can stare at it. It won't hurt your eyes. And it wasn't making any noise.
Hmm.
Like, is that creature? What is that? And he goes, I don't know. And it traveled the road until it came like parallel with us and it stopped. It's like, oh, no. And we sat there and looked at it. And all of a sudden, here it came. And it came right to us. And it stopped. And then it went right to the hood of the car. And it was probably a couple feet from the hood of the car, above the ground. No noise, just light in this big ball. We sat there and stared at it. And I said, can you see anything in it? He said, no. But it felt like it was trying to communicate with us. Does that make sense?
It does.
And it felt like an entity in itself. It didn't feel like it was harmful. It felt like it was trying to communicate something to us. Now, I don't know how long it sat there. Probably anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, because we talked back and forth among ourselves about maybe getting out of the car and approaching it. And we sat there and just tried to see windows or whatever. But all the time we sat there, we weren't afraid. Just more like filled with awe of anything. And all of a sudden, it went right up to the very hood of the car. And it went whoosh, and it was gone. And the car filled with light. And I can remember that bright light. And I was on the floor of the car. When it started coming toward us, I got down on the floor. And then when it was gone, I looked over at him, and he was slumped over the car, over the steering wheel. And I'm like, oh, okay. What was that? He's like, I don't know. I said, let's go home. He said, okay. So I'm only about 3 miles from home. So we go out the road, we get down to Mason, we turn left, and then we go about half a mile, turn right, and start across the Primary Mason Bridge. And as we're going across the bridge, I said, I feel funny. He said, me too. I said, it's not fear. I don't know how to describe it. I said, the only way I can describe it is I feel like something has been messing with my brain. Back then, there weren't any computers. But now I feel like something was uploaded into my mind. I felt, believe me, it's empty up in there. I felt like my brain had been cleared out, something had been put in, and I had this knowing. He said, I feel the same way. So we were almost to the end of the bridge. I said, turn right and go up into Pomeroy. And Pomeroy has a parking lot that overlooks the river. And when you go up there and you sit on that parking lot and overlook the river, you can see Mason and the hills from where we were. So we went up there and we sat and we talked, and we saw a few lights going across up there and back and forth, but we didn't know what they were. And I said, let's just go home. So he took me home. But this time it's about 9:15. And we get down to my house and we pull in the driveway, and my house, like I said, is right on the river. And my dad's and mom are sitting on the porch, and my dad comes running to the car. I'm like, something's wrong. Something's not right. And yeah, how'd he know where I was and what I was doing? But he comes up to the car and he said, hurry, get out of the car. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, your mom and I were sitting here about 15 or 20 minutes ago, and we see this light come up over the hill across the river there. And this is where we were. I said, show me where, Dad. And he pointed, and it was, there's a high school over there across the river called Wahama High School. He said, just to the left of Wahama, it came up over the hills. We were watching it, and it just barely made it across over top of the bridge and went to Pomeroy. I'm like, oh, Dad, we saw that. We were over there. And wait till we tell you what we saw. And my mom got up, but this time we were almost on the porch. And my mom got up and she went, the phone was ringing. And she came out and she said, that was your grandmother. And my grandmother lived in Upper Pomeroy, up above where we were parked on the parking lot. And on a real top of the hill up there, off of, I guess it's Route 7. And she said, Grandma said, hurry, go out and look. There's at least 2 UFOs coming down your way. So there was a mothership. There was the small one that we saw, and at least 2 other ones. And Mothman. And that's where my story starts. Do you have any questions so far you would like?
No, it's just an awesome story. I do think a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of UFO activity going on in the area back then. I've told people about it, and they're always surprised. But
Yes. Yeah. You want me to tell you the aftermath?
I remember an MIB sighting you had. I think you talked about.
This is
It was like a couple weeks later.
no, this was April,
Okay.
and all during the summer, there was UFO activity all in the area, all up and down the river, clear from. Um, mm, Trying to think what's up that way. Not really from Pittsburgh down, but down this way a little bit, all the way down to Huntington and Charleston. People were seeing this stuff,
Hmm.
and there was over 100 people, I think, that saw the Mothman. There were all these encounters that happened that summer. There was one girl that was going to church over in Mason, and during the day, and she was driving and up around the golf course, which was probably a mile or so from where we had our sighting down over the hill. Um, there was something in the road, and she stopped to look at it, and it stood up, and it put its wings up and went straight up. And that was one that was really scary. Another one was a guy was um, up above Mason, I think it's Henderson, at a cemetery, and he saw something out of the corner of his eye to the river down in the river bottoms to his left, and he looked and he watched Mothman fly across that river bottom. So he was sighted in daytime and in nighttime. Well, summer came and went, and it was relatively uneventful for us. We saw some strange lights and things and down around the Point Pleasant area, but it was becoming towards Christmas time. And it was a couple weeks before Christmas. And I wanted to do some Christmas shopping. And back then we didn't have a mall and we didn't have Walmart. We had to go to these small specialty stores or drive to Columbus. And I was still, let's see, was I 17 yet? Probably. Yeah, I had turned 17 in October, and this was December, so I was 17. I was driving in, and so I took off, and it was almost dark, not quite. And I was going to Point Pleasant. So I went down from Pomeroy to Gallipolis, which is right across the river, Gallipolis, Ohio, right across the river from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And I crossed the Silver Bridge. Now, the Silver Bridge, it was old when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think, oh gosh, when was it? I'm trying to think when it was built. 1948, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Uh, I've got a picture of it, but I don't guess it's in my book, but I can't remember exact date. But I was thinking it was built in the late 40s. Anyway, it was a suspension bridge, and it would swing from right
Hmm.
to left. And we used to go on it just for the thrill of it swinging. We never thought it would do anything, but we always hoped it would swing all the way over, you know. You know how teenagers are.
Yeah.
Well, I got on that bridge to go to Point Pleasant. It was dark, and I'm sitting in the middle of it, and that thing is swinging like it never swung before. And I got stopped in the middle, and I had a horrible feeling. I'm like, this isn't right. I don't know. And I sat there for a little bit, and I remember looking at the river, and it was beautiful, all the Christmas lights and stuff. Well, finally started going, and I get down off the bridge and turn right into town. And there's the little town of Point Pleasant. It's a cute little place. It had little shops on both sides. Now the Mothman Museum is down there on one of them.
Hmm. And the statue.
Yes, right
And you
below
can
the
watch
museum.
the statue anytime you want on my channel.
Oh,
That's
really?
yeah,
I
you didn't know
remember
about
that.
that?
Yeah, you'll see me down there Saturday. I'm going
Oh,
Saturday.
okay. Wave up at the MIB.
Oh, well. But anyway, I was going to get my sister a present. So I stopped down there at this store, and I noticed there's a place to park right in front, which is kind of unusual because it was Christmas time. And I noticed when I pulled in there, there was a weird looking man standing there. Now, in the small town America back in the 60s, you didn't see guys that were Asian looking, let alone dressed in solid black with hats and sunglasses at night. But
Well,
this
you
one,
still don't see that here either where I'm at, at night.
I
That
know
that is kind of an odd thing.
it's an odd thing. But this guy was standing there, and I thought, I sat in the car for a few minutes because I thought, well, he'll leave, but he didn't. And people were coming and going and looking at him, and he never made a move. He was like a statue. So I get out of the car and I look at him, and I'm pretty observant. And I tried to look behind his glasses, and I kind of nodded at him when I went by, and he didn't do anything. And I could tell he just, his skin it was a pallor, like a ashen color, but he had sort of, I could see his eyes kind of, uh, and I could tell his facial features, and he wasn't very tall. At the time, I was probably 5'3", 5'4", and he was only about 5'6", maybe. He wasn't a whole lot taller than me, but with his hat, he was a little bit. But I looked him over and walked in, and I looked around a little bit, and I walked up to pay for my item, and I asked the cashier, I said, what's that guy doing out there? She said, he's been hanging out here all afternoon. She said, I told the police, and they said, he ain't gonna hurt you. As long as he doesn't do anything, there's nothing we can do about it. He's probably just a government guy. I'm like, okay. So I waited till a bunch of other women went out, like women do, and I went on out, and I said hi to him, and he didn't say anything. And I looked down to my right, and there was another one standing there, and he was like a carbon copy of this one, and he was leaning against a lamppost. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. And I told my son the other night, I think that guy gave me more creeps than all the other stuff put together.
Oh, wow.
I did not feel comfortable around him. And I got in the car, and it is dark from Point Pleasant and to Pomeroy. It's about 25 minutes or so. And I had to drive that dark road. And of course, I didn't drive very slow. I wanted to get home. I wanted to get away from him. So I got up home and I told my mom, and she's like, "Oh, Linda, and my dad's like, you stay away from down there." "Okay, Dad, don't you go down there on the weekends, and don't you go down there." I'm like, "Okay, I won't." But of course, that's what we did every
Yeah.
weekend. A bunch of us went down there. We weren't supposed to, but by golly, that's where we went. Well, um, the days ticked by, and I think it was the night of the evening of let's see, the evening of the 14th. I went to bed, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm a psychic empath. Back then, I had psychic abilities, and I saw things, and I felt things, and I went to sleep. I had trouble sleeping, but I went to sleep, and I had a dream. And in my dream, I remember there was a lot of water, and I couldn't see the surroundings, but I could see the water, and I could see headlights down in the water, and I could hear metal crashing, and I could strange thing, um, packages, Christmas packages floating in the water, and people crying, and ambulances, and I'm like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And I got up and I told my mom, and she's that morning, and she said, "Oh, just go on. You're just having a dream." Of course, she had dreams too. And she said, "Don't worry about it. Just go on about your day. You got to dance tonight. You're going to have fun. You go enjoy your dance. Christmas is coming up. Your sister's getting married. We got a lot to look forward to." She tried to give me pep talk, but I still felt uneasy. So that evening, um, stayed over after school to decorate for a Christmas dance. And a bunch of us were in the school auditorium. It was the evening of the 15th of December, 1966, 60, excuse me, 67. There's a typo in my book.
Oh.
Anyway, it was 1967. And I'm like, the band was supposed to be there at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, nobody came. And that was pre-cell phone times. And so, we didn't think a whole lot of it because the thing didn't start till about 7. They had plenty of time to come set up. About a few minutes after 5, about a quarter after 5, somebody came running in. The doors flung open. They came running in. They said, "Our band's supposed to, the guys are supposed to come from Huntington area, that way, Charleston, Huntington. And the Silver Bridge has collapsed." We're like, "Oh, no, quit, don't say stuff like that." And they go, "No." And we don't know if there's anybody on there or not. And then we waited a little bit. About 5:30, someone had come back in and said they heard from the guys that they were like 3 or 4 back from going across that bridge to come up to Pomeroy through Gallipolis. And there was ambulances and stuff. So if they'd been a little bit sooner, they may have been on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to come up from Point Pleasant through Henderson, and up to Mason and across to Pomeroy. And then we went ahead and had our dance, but nobody was in a whole lot of a mood to, because everybody lost somebody on that bridge that night. I knew some kids, their dad perished. That was the only one I knew. But I didn't know until I read the Mothman prophecies that other people had that dream. And
Yeah,
I
I was gonna
saw the
say,
movie. Yeah,
yeah, I heard of other people having that same dream too.
couple of
Didn't think
the
it was from Mothman prophecy, so
yes, but I was shocked. I saw the movie, and it described it just like Mary Hyre. She was from the Athens Messenger, and she had a a business, an office down there in Gallipolis, I think, and she had the dream. And a couple of the other Mothman witnesses, they had the dream. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? Well, time went by, and I graduated when I was 17, and this was the winter before I graduated in 1968. I always had trouble in school. I was on the honor roll a lot, but I missed a lot of school because I had a lot of psychic dreams and problems. And this whole mess was seeing that creature and everything bothered me, but I couldn't understand why it bothered me that much. I got married, I had children, I went through divorce, I got a computer, and I thought, I'm going to get help for this. I'm going to find out what's going on. So I started getting hold of some people that were more knowledgeable in the area of UFOs. So I reached out to MUFON, Mutual UFO Network of Ohio, and they put me in touch with the Round Town UFO Society in Circleville, of which I'm still a member. And they asked me to come up and to tell my story, and they would see that it was a safe place. I had been, what do you call it, ostracized. I've been teased, been called a witch, been called an alien, on and on, all my growing up years from when I had my experience. And so I kept my mouth shut, and it bothered me socially, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. I had therapy. I talked to ministers because I had the power of discernment, especially from this. So they asked me to come up, and I gave my talk, and I went to several meetings, and they said, would you like to be regressed? And I said, well, what's that? And they said, there is a lady that she does this for people, and she comes to our meetings. She's a licensed psychologist, and she does hypnotic regression to help people with different things. And I said, I've got to get some help. This is just eating me alive. I know something happened to me during that era, and I want to know what happened. So she's like, she came to the meeting. I met her and set up an appointment to go to have the regression done. I was apprehensive, and I didn't think that, honestly, I didn't think, I didn't know. I thought it was all a bunch of hooey. I didn't understand regression. They taped my regression. It's on the roundtownufosociety.com. I'm not sure it's on the Facebook page of Round Town or not, but if you go to the web page, you can watch it under Linda's story. But I suggest you fast forward through the first few minutes of it, because it's just her talking to me and getting me settled down and telling me what it's all about. Anyway, she put me under. And she said, asked me at first if I wanted to remember everything. I said, I have to know what happened that night because there was lost time. She said, I'll pull you out if I think that you need to be brought back out. And I said, okay. And she said, you'll be aware of everything that's going on that I'm telling you. It'll just almost be like a dream state. And it was. And she was wonderful. So what happened? She said, tell me where you want to start. So I started at where he picked me up, and we went across the bridge, and we went out, and we pulled into the area, all that. I told her all that. And it was like I was right there in that moment. I knew what I was wearing. I knew what he was wearing. I knew what the weather felt like. I could see the surroundings. I could see the trees. I could see the night. And then I saw the UFO. And then she'd say things like, not leading, but can you describe it to me? Describe what's happening to you. And I told her, Eb told her about it coming over top of us and me sitting on the car. And she said, can you tell me now what happened? What's happening? And I said, I'm just sitting here looking at the car. And I'm looking at the UFO, and I'm looking us around. I can't see the sky. The thing's so big. And I'm looking to my right, and he's gone. And I'm yelling for him, my boyfriend, where are you? Where are you? And I remember slipping off the car, because when he got up, that quilt let go, and I was sitting on that quilt, and I didn't weigh very much, and I went with the quilt onto the ground in front of the car, and I can remember feeling the heat of the engine against my leg. It was that real.
Wow.
And I look there, and I look around, and I'm not really crying, but I'm almost in a panic. I'm like, where are you at? I call him by name, and no answer. And I try to pull myself up off that quilt, and I realize I'm sitting on something. And what I was sitting on was a pair of feet.
Oh.
And I'm praying, oh God, help me, Lord. And I'm sitting on these feet, and I'm like, that's not my boyfriend. I look forward, and it's these dark legs. And I keep looking up, and I keep going up, and it's this creature. And I'm sitting at the feet of this Mothman creature. So I kind of just go limp. I don't know, they pass out. I'm not sure exactly how long I sat there. I know I sat there for quite a while, because I remember trying to get a look at this thing. I think if it's going to kill me, I'm going to remember what it looks like. And I can remember its legs. And it didn't have hair on it or feathers, or it was just like a pair of legs, except they were dark. And of course, I'm sitting on the quilt. The next thing I know, it's reaching down and it picks me up. And I remember I was crying a little bit, but I don't know whether it was able to soothe me. I couldn't see its face, but it had hold of me, and I wasn't really afraid. And it takes me over to the car, and the car door is kind of ajar, so it kind of just gets a hold of the car door. And I look, and my boyfriend's sitting in there in a stupor behind the wheel. And he pulls him out, and he puts me in. And I can remember going like, and he puts him in. And when the door goes bang, I'm more to myself, and I'm crying. She's like, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And I can remember, I said, she said, what was it? And I said, it was the creature. It had me. My dog is a service dog, and she's having a fit because she knows, she hears me. She's barking. I've got her shut in the bathroom. She feels me. And from there on, it walked over, and it jumped in front of the car and flew up into the trees. And there's where we go down over the hill and see the other one. And she brings me back. I'm crying, of course, but I'm happy to know there was more that I experienced. And she said, I want you to come back. I said, well, not now, not right away. She said, I think there was more. And I've never had the guts to go back. That was 2017. So that was what, 7 years ago?
Don't seem like it, but yeah.
And, but finally, when I kept going to the meetings and meeting other people that had close encounters, that had been abducted. And like I said, if you have something like this that happened to you, There are safe places. You need to get it out. You need to tell someone, if only under a therapist's help. Um, if you ask me if the regression therapy helped, I think it helped me tremendously. What helps me the most is being around people that have had like experiences and that would say, Linda, you're nuts. Okay. Okay. I might have gone through an experience. I know what I encountered beyond a shadow of a doubt, but I am a Christian woman, and that's the part that I had a lot of trouble with. And I talked to several different denominations of ministers, and they've all told me the same thing. God has given you the power of discernment. Whatever this was, it did not hurt you. And they said, use your abilities, your psychic abilities, your empath abilities to connect with other people. So that is my story, and that's what I went through. And as far as the aftermath, I've helped a lot of people. I've met people from Arizona, Florida, different places that I travel. I'm drawn to these people. Even I went to Bimini with my daughter. I was drawn to a group of people. I met people that had surgeries that didn't tell me. I told them what they had undergone, um, what their outcome was. I told this girl that her mother had just passed and that she wanted her to know she was okay. I told them names, dates, times. I don't know where this stuff comes. I think I am just a conduit from God. Now, what these creatures or this creature did for me was maybe opened my abilities, my third eye, whatever you want to call it. But that's when I felt something happened to my mind, to my intellect. And this is my calling, I guess, is just to help other people.
That was an amazing story. I don't you wouldn't have been able to see, but I had a couple times I heard it before, I told you at the festival, but I had a couple times my jaw just dropped. It
Yeah.
was
Um,
incredible. And thank you so much for sharing it again.
my pleasure. And every time I do it, um, the thing I want to say to people is, you are not alone. You're not alone. And um, find out what it means for you to go through this. Um, seek, look, find, you'll find it. And, you know, uh, God has blessed me with so many new friends and so many wonderful things. And I want to continue to help people for as long as I can. And it was a pleasure to meet you and to be able to share my story with you guys.
Oh, definitely. I felt the connection with you too. You were talking about how, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it all makes sense.
Um, one thing I think that even though it's not real close, I think I have it on other sides of my family, um, is the Native American aspect. My boyfriend was three-quarter Cherokee, and my sixth great grandpa is Chief Cornstalk. I talked to some of the other people that had experiences, and they have Native American, even Chief Cornstalk. And I think that we're more connected, and it's in our DNA when we're connected with nature. It's just a different type of animal that the native people are. And that's what I've always lived in the woods. I mean, I go in the woods in the winter. I mean, I gather herbs and mushrooms and anything I can find. And I, uh, I sit by the creek, and that's where you will find peace, is in those wonderful woods with nature.
I think I find the most peace when I'm out fishing somewhere away from people. It's got to be something in written into our DNA.
It's cell memory is what I like to call it. I think that our bodies contain, there's more into that. I mean, it goes down to the cellular level, the memories of all of our generation, of all of our families. Oh, my great grandma, uh, Emma Casto, she was a shoemaker, and the shoemakers were the side of the Native Americans, and also in her family tree, which we did over the last few years, is Sylvia Shoemaker Brown. She was a psychic, and it's a healer. I think we're healers, and whether we're physical healers, emotional, mental healers, whatever we are, and I think we all have that ability. And I just think it might be easier for some of us than others.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you. And if you want to read more about my abilities and things that I've gone through and that I can share, if I can help anyone, I've got a book on Amazon called Beyond the Pale Moonlight. It's a UFO Mothman encounter. And
I'll put a link in the description of the video for it of it so people can find it easy.
okay, it's also on sale at the Mothman Museum. Jeff Walmsley. If you get a chance to come to Point Pleasant, I'll go there because the museum is awesome. And he has a front store that has all kinds of t-shirts and sweatshirts and Mothman stuff. I got a license plate to go on the car. I have, this is my new one. I hit a deer in November on that
I'm
on
sorry.
Interstate 77, and it tore up my other one. But I just got to get my car fixed the 21st, and then I'll put my new one on. And, but and I go to Sutton area to the Bigfoot Museum and the Flatwoods Monster Museum, and those places are awesome too. But I hope everyone can come to the Mothman Festival this September. I think it's the second weekend. It might be the 14th and the 15th this year.
It's usually the second weekend, I believe.
And like you have the um, webcam, the moth
Yeah,
cam,
a
and
lot of people can't make it watch that. That's pretty cool.
yeah, and everything's free down there except
Mhm.
if you want to buy something or have
Yeah,
lunch,
yeah.
you can go and talk to people. That's what I like to do, is talk to all the
I like to
vendors.
walk around and see all the stuff, and then I run into all kinds of people I know, but, I mean, it's
Yeah,
mostly just walking around, seeing all the neat stuff. It's so neat. I hate to keep saying it, but neat.
I met a girl from Britain, and she goes, "I would like to talk to you," and I said, "Well, come over here, let's talk." And she's like, "Ah," it's like I'm nothing. I just happened to be at the wrong place at the right time, I guess.
Mm.
But you know, these things are real. These creatures are real. What I think they are is interdimensional beings. At least some of them are. From what I saw, sure looked like it came through something. So, but
Well, definitely appreciate you coming on. Well, I definitely want to have you on to tell another story in the future if you're interested.
I'd like you to talk to my son Chris too about UFOs. Uh,
Sure.
he's we could
My people that follow me love stories. I'm sure they'd love them.
he has the Bigfoot encounter here where we were under siege one night.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, well, I'd love to come back, and a great big thank you, and thank you to everybody out there, and hope you have a wonderful new year, and hope it's exciting for everyone.
No, thank you. And thank you all that tuned in. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Good night.
Good night.